So tell me about the rules in your significant relationships, right? Because, we all have them, right? The rules, in the relationships we have with our partners or our friends or our children, families. I'm sure you all have rules. We have a gospel this morning about rules and relationships. So what are your rules? One Sunday, many years ago now, my friend took me to church because he wanted me to meet his priest, a man named Father Brian. Actually, some of you know Father Brian. But this was before, a long time ago. And so he really liked Father Brian. So off we went one Sunday morning, and we climbed up the stairs into the balcony because we like to snark at the back. And we got there, but it wasn't Father Brian, it was Father Ancient of Days, who to me looked like he retired 50 years ago. And this was the gospel for that morning. And so as he got up slowly, climbing very slowly so he wouldn't fall down, up to the pulpit, which had, something on the top, we leaned in, both of us found ourselves leaning in. What was he going to say? Right? What was he going to say? Divorce and God. Was he for it or against it? Was he going to condemn people or figure something out? And we just leaned further and further in. And then he began. And he said, I'd like to speak to you today about Zacchaeus. And off he went on a completely different gospel. And we leaned back and we got really snarky and we said, too bad he took the coward's way out. But reflecting now, it's sort of worse than that. Because by leaving it out there hanging, by reading it and then not reflecting on it, it can become a weapon. A weapon about the rules, about who's in and who's out, who has power and who doesn't, who is worthy and who is not. So we're not going to talk about Zacchaeus this morning. We're just going to go there. And let's talk about the rules, because in fact there really is only one rule. Everything we say today, everything that bubbles up in our own minds and hearts, whether it's directed to others or to ourselves, needs to hold to the highest good, to the rule of compassion. Because this is a difficult passage, dealing with topics that are triggering and button-pushing, topics that can touch on people's personhood and value and worth. And this passage has been, and probably sadly continues to be used as a weapon against people who are not following a particular set of rules. It's very gendered and it deals with divorce, and those are touchy issues. So today, compassion is the rule and the highest good here. So what are the rules of your significant relationships? And where is compassion in them? Which is another way to say, where is God in the way you deal in your relationships? Jesus is talking about rules, but the rule that Jesus is talking about isn't divorce. It is compassion. It's important, I think, to note that Jesus is being set up here by his opponents. They're trying to trick him into laying out what he considers the rules, so that he'll go too far in one direction or the other and trip up. They're trying to back him into a corner, and instead he sort of flips the conversation and from something that was about hard and fast rules about what to do and what not to do. And I think instead moves it into a discussion about holy relationship, and that underneath all of it is the rule of compassion. Compassion as the highest value, the greatest good. So if there's a rule, that's it. Because when Jesus is speaking about divorce, he's speaking about a system where men had more power than women, where divorce was a weapon that could be used against a vulnerable person. Men could divorce women for no reason. Women didn't have that same right. And if a woman was divorced, she had nothing. Not her children. She didn't walk away with her children, or money, or power, or land, or a place to live. She was vulnerable and dependent on the mercy of others. And to that situation of discrimination and abuse, Jesus says, no, compassion is the rule. It is the highest good. It's not a rule to keep people in line, but rather compassion in our relationships. Because relationships, those significant relationships, whether with our partners or our children or our families or our friends, they're messy and they're complicated, and sometimes they're better and sometimes they're worse. So how does compassion fit into those real life relationships? Compassion, as the rule, is about compassion for ourselves and compassion for others. And compassion, as a rule, in our significant relationships means sometimes relationships need to end. Compassion, as the highest good, as a rule, is not about taking abuse or staying when you shouldn't. It is about taking responsibility for your own part, but it's not accepting dangerous, bad situations, or about turning away and pretending, but it is about caring for people. And sometimes it's leaving. Sometimes it's letting go. Compassion as the highest good means giving grace and receiving it. And it has nothing to do with gender, but instead how we live into our relationships, how we treat the people we love, and how we treat ourselves. In fact, I think rule is the wrong word. It's a practice of faith. A practice is something we do in that lived experience that participates in our relationship with God. And it's a practice. It's something we do over and over again, and sometimes we do it better, and sometimes we do it worse, but we keep trying. And it participates in that life, faithful life. So how is compassion as a practice at work in your significant relationships? When have you received it? And when have you given it? When have you given it to yourself? Know that it's holy. It's part of the holy journey. Because compassion is God's highest good. If there is a rule, it is the rule. May we all find, receive, and give compassion. And someday, we'll talk about Job, and someday we'll talk about Zacchaeus, but not today. Amen.